Hi, welcome to the Vegan Voice. Today I'm going to be delving into the topic of vegan stigma, why this occurs, and how we can use that knowledge to improve our activism. Whether you're vegan or not, I'm sure we've all heard tale of the stereotypical vegan, often described as smug, pushy, loud, and obnoxious. While I'm sure that there are some vegans out there who do match this stereotype, in my experience, the majority do not. So why is it that vegans in general are perceived so negatively in society? I believe the primary cause of this is not some bizarre run-in with a particularly pushy activist, but a matter of psychology. A study by McInnes and Hodson published in 2015, It Ain't Easy Eating Greens, linked in the description below, investigated biases held towards vegetarians and vegans. The study found that omnivores often viewed both groups more negatively than even common prejudicial targets, such as people of colour or the LGBTQ community. What I found particularly interesting about this study was the fact that those whose veganism was motivated by health were viewed less negatively than those who were motivated by animal rights or environmental concerns. At first glance, this may be confusing. Surely, regardless of motivation, a vegan is a vegan, right? However, when we stop to think about this, it does start to make sense in a weird way. Health is a uniquely personal thing. It doesn't affect others or the world around us. As such, personal health choices do not remark upon the decisions of others. To try and elaborate on this, consider what I like to call the cognitive bias triangle. This consists of three beliefs held in tandem. 1. I am a good person. 2. Causing harm or distress to animals is bad. And 3. Consuming animal products causes harm and distress to animals. Now, there is nothing contradictory about holding these three beliefs. In fact, I would argue that they are perfectly rational. However, consciously holding on to these beliefs whilst consuming animal products causes cognitive dissonance. For those who aren't aware, cognitive dissonance is a feeling of mental discomfort that occurs when personally held beliefs or behaviours are contradictory. When faced with cognitive dissonance, we have a few options. We can either change our behaviours or beliefs, or we can try and find loopholes to try and make the beliefs align with our behaviours, or we can simply put it out of our mind, try as hard as we can to ignore our contradictory behaviours. Now, changing or ignoring our beliefs and behaviours is easy enough to understand, but the use of loopholes needs a bit of explaining. Let's go back to our triangle. We could theoretically create a loophole by turning this triangle into a square. What if I were to say, yes, consuming animal products causes harm and distress, but not consuming animal products causes even more harm and distress? And thus we have the crop deaths argument, or the quinoa consumption harms communities in Peru argument. By adding an additional belief, consuming animal products is the lesser of two evils. Suddenly our beliefs and behaviours are not contradictory. Alternatively, you might argue that I would stop eating animal products, but humans need animal products to survive. If you're vegan, you've probably been asked about protein or vitamin B12 more times than you can remember. I know I have. Once again, we're adding an additional belief. I don't have a choice, that reduces the effects of cognitive dissonance. Now, these arguments can generally be debunked quite easily and have been repeatedly by others, so I won't retread that ground just now. I'll add some links in the description below to some of the videos doing just that in case you're interested. But in reality, I'm more interested in what happens when a vegan does debunk the statement, rather than the act of debunking itself. If you've convinced yourself that by not going vegan you are being more compassionate, or that you literally can't go vegan, how do you think being told you're wrong will impact you on a psychological level? If your moral loophole fails, then the cognitive dissonance rears its ugly head once again. Now, I'm not saying a person has to have been debunked by a vegan in order for them to harbour some form of negative bias. In fact, due to the general low percentage of vegans in society, it's very unlikely that most omnivores have ever even had such a discussion. So why the hate? Well, I think there's a few reasons. Firstly, I genuinely believe that most omnivores don't actually believe their own loopholes, and the very existence of vegans is a reminder that they could in fact change their behaviours if they wanted to. Secondly, for those attempting to simply ignore their cognitive dissonance, the mere existence of vegans is a reminder of their own contradictory actions. That's right, our very existence can cause others discomfort. Finally, and in my opinion more significantly, is a perception of moral superiority brought about as a result of this cognitive dissonance. A belief that vegans think of themselves as being morally superior to non-vegans. Now, I can't speak for every vegan in the world, but I don't perceive myself to be superior to anyone, morally or otherwise. I have simply made one moral decision that many others have not. I'm sure many non-vegans make many moral decisions that I do not. Maybe they give more to charity than I do, or campaign for other forms of social justice or environmental welfare that I do not. I do not believe that individuals who consume animal products are inherently evil or morally inferior to myself. So the question now becomes, what can we do about this when it comes to vegan activism? And I believe there's a couple of options. One is to reframe the discussion to a more personal position, focus on concepts such as personal health and well-being. A few great examples of this would be documentaries like Forks Over Knives, What the Health, and The Game Changers, or the fantastic work of YouTubers like Hench Herbivore, Simnett Nutrition, and Mike the Vegan. If you're not subscribed to them, you really should be. I'll leave links to their channels in the description below. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of this option. People make poor health choices on a daily basis. Now, some may be motivated to change their behaviours to improve their health, but many more won't. The second option, and this might sound odd, is to provide non-vegans with a loophole to escape from their cognitive dissonance. But this time, the loophole will be one of our creation. And the best bit, this loophole is actually true. There's no need for deception. So what is this loophole? Why do we want to provide non-vegans with a way to assuage guilt over the use of animal products? Well, quite simply, the loophole is you have been lied to. I'll be going over some good ways to go about this in future videos, but for now I'll just explain the structure of a potential discussion. Rather than starting out by describing the horrific, brutal abuse of animals in the modern world, we can instead start pointing out how the animal agriculture industry spends billions on marketing, paying for misleading research and press releases in order to confuse and mislead the public. You could point out how the US Cattlemen's Beef Board is investing over $39 million this year alone for, and I quote, beef promotion, research, consumer information, industry information, foreign marketing, and producer communications. I've added a link below to the Beef Board's own press release explaining this. So, why should we do this? Why assuage the guilt of those we disagree with, those who we want to change their behaviour? The answer is simple: to move the conversation forward. If I start a conversation with you by calling you or your actions evil, then we're just going to end up in a debate, a fight over ideology, which rarely ends up being productive. I've added a link in the description to a great article from The Conversation explaining why this is the case. So rather than turning the conversation into a battle of ideas, we can start by saying, metaphorically of course, it's not your fault.
Look at me, son. It's not your fault.
Once we've assuaged guilt, we may well find out that people are more open to engaging in less combative discussions around the animal agriculture industry and the solutions to the problem. So we've changed our triangle into a square. Let's take it a step further. That's right, we're going pentagonal. By the end of the discussion, we should have imparted enough facts to an individual to highlight that, yes, indeed, the animal agriculture business is horrifying. And now that you do know the facts, and if you don't act on those facts and change your behaviours, that loophole we just gave you, it's going to be gone. And you're going to have to deal with that cognitive dissonance all over again. Basically, by temporarily assuaging guilt, we can allow for more effective, less combative conversation to occur, hopefully leading to better outcomes from our activism. Now, obviously I'm talking about discussion principles here, not giving you a script for discussion, saying to someone, now that you know this, you need to stop eating animal products or you're bad, is just going to take us back to square one. Instead, you could prompt someone to sign up to Vegan Easy's 30-day vegan challenge. I've added a link in the description below. Or ask them to perform a behavioural action. Behavioural actions is a whole other topic that will be the subject of a video coming out soon. I sincerely hope that this video will be helpful to you in making discussions around veganism go a little bit smoother and maybe a little bit less combative. I know these discussions can get pretty heated at times. If you found this video helpful, it would mean a lot to me if you could leave a like and subscribe to hear more in future. This is my first video, so obviously I'm still trying to figure out the best format. If you have any feedback or suggestions about future topics you'd like to hear me discuss, I'd love to hear about them, so please feel free to leave a comment below. And finally, thanks for taking the time to listen today. Hopefully together we can move towards a more loving, kind and caring world. Thank you.